Going. Okay, I made some notes here during the presidential debate. First of all, everybody was really kind of commenting on the moderators and stuff from what I could tell on Twitter, or I'm sorry, excuse me, on X. And to me, I didn't take away from, like, I just went in assuming the moderators were going to be biased. So I never really thought that that was part of the story, or I don't think it's interesting to talk about, the moderators. Obviously, ABC News, David Muir, obviously Democrat operatives, obviously biased. So, obviously the whole thing was a joke with the debate moderators, fact checking Trump and then letting Kamala Harris get away with lies. The questions they asked, the framing of the questions, obviously that was all biased, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we sort of knew that going in. Donald Trump still did fantastic. I definitely think Trump won. Kamala Harris, her very first, when she walked out and she walks up to Trump and she says, Kamala Harris, as if she's introducing herself to Donald Trump, as if Donald Trump doesn't know her name. That was not a good start. That was kind of cringy. That was kind of like when Joe Biden first walked out during his debate and everybody just sort of jaw dropped when they saw Joe Biden. It's like, are you serious? Is this really happening right now? Is this guy dead or alive right now? It was that sort of like jaw drop moment when Kamala Harris forgot. Kamala Harris, nice to meet you. Kamala Harris, nice. And Trump's like, good to see you or something, or whatever. You're nice to see you or something, whatever Trump said. It was just weird and creepy and off-putting and fake. And that's going to be a theme throughout this. That a lot of what Kamala Harris did and said was completely fake, completely not genuine. Of course, they first asked her, the very first question they asked her was, can you answer the question, are people better off than they were 4 years ago? And she could not say yes. She could not say yes. It was amazing to me that she wouldn't just say yes, people are better off than they were 4 years ago. She wouldn't answer the question. I thought that was quite telling. Like, she wouldn't even, she wasn't even willing to say, yeah, we're better off than we were 4 years ago. That's basically an admission on Kamala's part that nobody believes we're better off than we were 4 years ago. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad for Democrats and for Kamala. Donald Trump was the beginning of the debate. Donald Trump was talking about immigration and talking about very, very serious issues where Americans have been, murdered and raped and stuff by illegal aliens. And Kamala Harris was literally laughing and not taking it seriously at all. And it was very disrespectful, I thought. Very, very, very disrespectful and stuff for Kamala to be laughing and not taking it seriously when Trump was talking about some very, very serious topics about immigration. I thought that was terrible on the part of Kamala. Very, very off-putting. At one point I burst out laughing. Completely burst out laughing. When Kamala Harris was like, remember what Trump left us. Trump left us an economy in shambles. Trump left us, wars raging around the world. Donald Trump left us with the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. The Civil War. The Civil War, guys, all the way back to the Civil War. That January 6th is worse than anything since the Civil. It's worse than 9/11. January 6th was a worse attack on our democracy than 9/11. She literally said that. She said it's the worse than Pearl Harbor. January 6th is worse than Pearl Harbor. She literally said it was the worst attack on America since the Civil War. Ever heard of Pearl Harbor? Ever heard of 9/11? Ever heard of lots of other attacks? Wow, that was really bad on the part of Kamala. Kamala, number one argument is Trump doesn't care about Americans and only helps. Did you guys notice at the beginning of the debate? It was really weird. It was really weird. Like we were talking about Trump's policies and Kamala Harris she kept coming back to the same thing, which is, I care about you. Donald Trump doesn't care about you. All he cares about is helping billionaires. And Donald Trump thinks that the middle class should have to pay for billionaires and pay more for billionaires to help. And it's like everybody's sort of just, it's like, what are you talking about, lady? Like, Donald Trump's economic policies helped the middle class more than anybody, helped all Americans. Like, it was not a serious argument on the part of Kamala Harris, I didn't think. And it's just classic. It's also just classic class warfare, class envy, Marxist type thinking, trying to divide. Remember, America doesn't have classes. We have social mobility. People become millionaires and billionaires. People lose millions and billions and end up with nothing. And so we don't really even have like billionaire classes and middle classes, so to speak. It's all fluid in the United States because we have social mobility, and because of this, we have a free we still have remnants of a free market economy. But the fact that her whole argument was, oh, well, I care about you, and Trump just wants the middle class to help billionaires was so pathetic. I can't believe anybody would actually take that argument seriously. So that was just very, very weak on the part of Kamala Harris. At one point, Kamala Harris actually had the temerity, the gall, the cojones, the chutzpah to actually say that Trump is going to explode the deficit by giving out tax cuts to billionaires. That Trump is going to explode the deficit. And it's just ridiculous because number one, Kamala Harris has exploded the deficit already. We haven't exploded deficit. We're borrowing $3 billion a day. We're borrowing trillions of dollars a year. We're running like a $2 trillion plus deficit a year. So, yeah, that was not. And then the second part of that is, okay, please, Democrats, don't pretend to me like you care about the deficit. We've got Republicans on Capitol Hill every single day, day in and day out, Republicans on Capitol Hill trying to cut spending. And it's simply, it can't happen because Democrats refuse any spending cuts in Washington, D.C. Any spending cut whatsoever, the Democrats refuse to allow through. And so Democrats are dead set on massive spending. And so for to hear Kamala Harris like attack Donald Trump on the deficit is just, it's too rich. It's gaslighting. It's false information. It's premised on people having very, very low amounts of information. It's premised on people being already brainwashed by the mainstream media, not really knowing the truth about matters. It was another bad moment for Kamala amongst many bad moments. One of the examples of how bad the moderators were was literally there was a moment in the debate when the moderators are asking about tariffs and they're like, Vice President Harris, tariffs are just sales taxes, and Trump's tariffs are going to be just like a 20% sales tax. And so Kamala Harris, what do you think? And Kamala Harris, while the moderator's asking the question, is like, Yep. Kamala Harris sitting there nodding yes right along with what the moderator was saying about tariffs being a sales tax. And it's like, there's a lot more to tariffs than that. That's like a very sort of narrow-minded, simplistic view of tariffs based on like partisan framing. Like tariffs are, when you're going to talk about tariffs and trade policy, it becomes a lot more complex than just saying, oh, it's a sales tax or not, or who pays it or not, or what. It's not just a simple, one person. It only impacts one side of the economy. It's like, no, this is a lot more complicated. It has other parts of our economy to do with this, and it not only has to do with products coming into our country, but it also has to do with whether our products can go to the other country. And so the idea that, oh, it's just a sales tax was so stupid, but it was so obvious at that moment. Excuse me. It was so obvious at that moment of the bias in the moderators, simply because of how it was the visual of the moderator saying, yeah, Trump's tariffs are just like a national sales tax, and Kamala Harris nodding right along yes with the moderators. it was very telling. There was one moment during the economic debate where Donald Trump absolutely nailed the comeback. Kamala Harris had said something about the economy and this, that, and the other thing. Donald Trump comebacks, and then it says like the polls show that like 90% of Americans say the Trump economy was great and that their economy is terrible. And Trump just nailed it on that. There's some of these other points. Some of these other points on like tariffs and trade and some of these other points we'll talk about later. I do think Trump missed some opportunities. I think Trump definitely missed some opportunities, but who am I to criticize him? But on that economy question, on immigration, on some of the most important issues that voters actually care about, boom, Trump nailed it. And I love that part where he was like, 90% of Americans say they love the Trump economy and that her economy is terrible. And it was like, boom, that says it all, doesn't it? There was one thing. Okay, here, this is an overall point of mine that both me and my wife both agreed on. Is that Kamala Harris came off to us as very, very rehearsed. Very, very rehearsed, as if she was told what to say, as if she was just spewing talking points. It did not come across as genuine. You could really tell with Kamala Harris too how she would go from being very understanding and saying, oh, I care about the American people, I care, to then being angry at Trump, and then to being like sad again, and then being joyful and happy. And it was sort of weird the way like she was changing her demeanor and her position. And it came off as very, very, very bad acting. It came off almost like a commercial or an advertisement, You know how you can tell how somebody is doing a commercial or an advertisement? It kind of came off like that, as if like she was just saying what she was told to say. And one of the specific examples of that during the debate that I noticed was when she said the question was about China policy, and she said, look, what our China policy needs to be focused on is winning the 21st century. And it's like, okay, and it just came off like, okay, winning the 21st century against China. That's your talking point. Somebody told you to say that. So yeah, Kamala Harris's policy on China is winning the 21st century. What a great policy, guys. Kamala Harris is gonna win the 21st century. It's a meaningless, empty phrase. And it was obviously, it actually, like, if you're a know-nothing, like, idiot loser, and you know nothing about policy, you may think that sounds good, and it kind of does sound good. But if you actually know anything about policy, you recognize it as a meaningless, like, basically meaningless claptrap. I thought Trump did pretty good on abortion. Trump was pretty good on abortion, I thought, frankly, in terms of basically saying he sent it back to the states, that people are voting on it at the state level. But, I thought Trump did really well. And then going, of course, trying to turn it around on him. Trump did a really good job of turning it around on him and pointing out how it's actually the Democrats that are extreme on abortion. And then another example of the moderators being totally, totally biased was when they were trying to fact check Trump on what the Virginia governor said about executing a baby. And it's like, no, Donald Trump was accurate when he described what the Virginia governor said about, hey, if there's an abortion, we're going to try to have an abortion, and the baby's born and the baby's alive, what do? And he said, you keep the baby comfortable, and then the doctor and the mother decide what to do with the baby. That's what he said. And then the moderator's like, executing babies is not legal anywhere in America. Okay, next question. It's like, dude, first of all, Donald Trump didn't say that it was legal in a specific state to execute babies. He said that the Virginia governor said that the Virginia governor's policy that he supports is that if there's an abortion and the baby's born alive, that instead you actually, he would prefer that you keep the baby alive and let the doctor and the mother decide. That was his position. He exposed the Democrats' real policy. And that's why he's a nobody in the Democrat Party, because he wasn't smart enough to keep that policy hidden. Everybody knows that. And that was a total example of moderator bias. Did you notice this too, guys? This was important. I thought this was an important part of the debate. They specifically asked Kamala Harris. They specifically asked Kamala Harris, do you support any abortion restrictions? Any at all? Because Donald Trump had just got done talking about how the Democrats want abortions all the way up to 9 months. And they asked Kamala, okay, Kamala, he said that you support abortions up to 9 months with no restrictions and no restrictions. Do you support any abortion restrictions, and what are those? And she said, I support Roe v. Wade, which is a way of saying she didn't say that, oh, I support restrictions. Roe v. Wade doesn't have any restrictions in it. Roe v. Wade says you have a right to an abortion and it can't be restricted. Except and if somebody does restrict it, then this is how you analyze whether the restriction is constitutional. And it set out this framework of analyzing whether state law restrictions are constitutional or not. It did not have any restrictions within it. And she was specifically asked, do you have any restrictions? And she said, I support Roe v. Wade, which has no restrictions. So AKA, she supports zero restrictions. She literally proved right there on the debate stage exactly what Donald Trump was accusing Democrats of, which is supporting abortion rights with zero restrictions. Because when you're asked, hey, do you support any restrictions? And if so, what are they? And then your answer does not include any restrictions at all. That means that you do not support any restrictions on abortion. So that was amazing the way Kamala Harris literally proved Donald Trump's point in her very answer on the stage that then she was trying to dispute later. Of course, she was trying to dispute Trump's point that she had just proven by refusing any abortion restrictions, which is exactly what Trump just got done accusing the Democrats of. That was a really big, important moment. And then Kamala trying to bring up IVF. Dude, this is like... The Democrats bring up these weird things like IVF, birth control, and then they accuse the Republicans of like trying to ban birth control and trying to ban condoms or IVF or whatever. And it's like, dude, nobody cares about IVF. Nobody's trying to ban IVF. Nobody's trying to take your condoms. Nobody's trying to ban birth control. That is a complete straw man, fig leaf, boogeyman. That's like thinking that like the Nazis are a big, huge, powerful political force in the United States of America. It's a boogeyman. It doesn't exist. And so Kamala bringing up this huge thing about IVF and some of her stories about how like women were bleeding out in the parking lot because nobody would help them with the miscarriage because they thought that it was against the abortion law is not true. My wife said that's literally from a TV show. Like the exact thing that Kamala Harris described about that woman like bleeding out in the parking lot because the hospital was too scared to help because of abortion laws or something when it was just a miscarriage. That's literally from a TV show. It's not a real thing. And Kamala Harris was telling that story as if it was real. And it's like, no, that's literally from a popular TV show that was fake. That's never happened in real life. If that actually ever happened in real life, I guarantee you there would be freaking Hollywood movies made about it. There would be 1,000 documentaries about it. It would be every single news story. Kamala Harris would talk about it all the time. We'd know the exact name of the person. It's like, no, that never happened. Quit lying about IVF and people bleeding out. Give me a break. And then it was so weird too. Again, it was like, They're talking about abortion, and Kamala Harris is like, well, yeah, and well, what if a woman gets pregnant? What if a woman gets pregnant and she doesn't want her baby anymore, and in one state might not allow it, so she has to go across state lines to get health care. And she wants to get rid of that baby, then she has to go get health care, and Trump's trying to take away her health care. And it's like, wait, why do you just keep calling it health care? Why don't you just call it an abortion? It was like the way that they call abortions healthcare is the most bizarre, most evil euphemism. It's like they hate to even refer to it as abortion, and they just instead call it healthcare, which is an admission. They're admitting on their own. They're admitting that what they're saying is so evil that they don't even want to say it. They don't even want to talk. They don't even want to say abortion because the way that they're talking about it as such a wonderful thing, they have to say healthcare because it's okay. It's okay to say healthcare is a wonderful thing. It's okay to say healthcare is a wonderful thing. It's not okay to say killing abortion, is a wonderful thing. So they implement that, and Kamala Harris did it constantly, and everybody in my living room was kind of like, why does she keep saying healthcare when she means abortion? It was the most bizarre word replacement. Oh, and then another example of the moderator bias. Another example of the moderator bias was when ABC News David Muir started asking Kamala Harris a question, and they said, "Hey, Kamala, you weren't the borders czar. You weren't the borders czar. You were actually tasked with discussing the root causes of migration. And what did you do about that? And what are you going to do next time?" And it's like, okay, the whole thing about how she was never borders czar and she was just supposed to deal with the root causes of migration. That is a White House talking point. That is a Democrat Party talking point. That is a partisan argument. And ABC News, these moderators, were literally using partisan DNC talking points as part of the premise of their question. It was so obviously biased. The one thing that I thought when we were going through the debate was basically how I sort of got this feeling that Donald Trump is like this fighter, and they just keep putting up people against him, and Trump beats them, and then they have to drop out, and now they put up somebody else, right? Like Trump debated Hillary Clinton. She lost. She dropped out. Now Trump had to debate Biden. Now Biden has dropped out. Then Trump now had to debate Kamala Harris, and it was like, oh, Kamala Harris is just the next one in a long line of defeats that Trump deals to Democrats. Democrats just keep throwing up opponents against Trump, and Trump keeps knocking them down. Oh, we'll throw up Hillary Clinton. Trump knocks him down. Oh, we'll throw up Joe Biden. Trump knocks him down. Oh, we'll throw up Kamala Harris. Trump knocks her down. I mean, the other thing that was bizarre about Kamala Harris was how much it was just all personal attacks from Kamala Harris. All personal attacks from Kamala Harris. She really viciously, disgustingly went after Donald Trump personally. I thought that was so disturbing. The way she personally attacked Donald Trump, I was just like, whoa. And then the other thing she did was straight up appeals to emotion. Non-stop appeals to emotions and personal attacks. That was all Kamala Harris had. Not one bit of policy. And Donald Trump really could have been a better job of exposing Kamala Harris as a leftist on policy and a flip-flopper and a fraud. I would say it wasn't Donald Trump's best night. I don't think it changes anything overall of this race. I think Kamala Harris was pretty off-putting. I think both of them probably didn't do themselves. The other thing about Kamala Harris is her face looks so weird. Did you guys notice, kind of like her the way her smile was too? Did you notice how kind of Kamala Harris's face looked kind of weird? I love that line when Donald Trump was like, "I'm different. I fired those people." Me and my wife got a big chuckle out of that line. Trump was like, "I'm a different kind of guy. I fired those people." That was awesome. I thought it was really, really disturbing the way Kamala Harris went after Trump for being criminally charged and all those criminal cases. Donald Trump defeated her on that, obviously pointing out all of his victories and how it was lawfare and weaponization. But I thought Kamala Harris actually exposed herself and exposed the Biden Tester Harris regime as being engaged in weaponization of our DOJ and political persecution and abuse of power and abuse of office and destroying the integrity of our judicial system and our rule of law. She exposed herself for that when she attacked Trump on the criminal cases, because now she's using those criminal cases to attack Trump in the political campaign, which is exactly what Trump has been accusing them of doing. See how that proves the point? Donald Trump accuses them of going after him criminally for political purposes. And then what does Kamala Harris do? She uses those criminal cases for political purposes. So that's exposing yourself. It's like, okay, Kamala, if you're not going after Trump on those criminal cases for political purposes, if those are just run of the mill, you're just prosecuting laws, you're just prosecuting the criminal laws, then maybe you shouldn't use it for political purposes. And all she had was personal attacks. I thought that her answer on fracking was deceptive enough to trick a lot of people. I think a lot of people would be deceptively tricked because the way she explained it. The truth, of course, is that she's trying to say that she voted in favor of the Inflation Reduction Act, and that proves that she likes fracking. Well, what's ridiculous about that is the only reason fracking was in there was presumably because of conservatives or moderates like pushing for it to be in there, and Kamala was objecting to it and saying, no, we don't want that in there. But then the moderate Democrats were like, no, we want this in here. Otherwise, we're not going to vote for it. And Kamala was like, okay, fine. We'll still support this. And so like she reluctantly agreed to it. Now she's using that to say, oh, I love fracking. Give me a break. What Kamala's actual policies, the only thing she had was a bunch of Santa Claus BS, the same kind of crap Obama did with just giveaways. Kamala, here's Kamala's policies. $6,000 for every kid, $50,000 for business, 3 million new homes, $25,000 to everybody to buy a new home. It's like, dude, Kamala, we don't have any money. Our government's broke. We don't have $6,000 for every kid, $50,000 for every business, 3 million new homes, $25,000 for down payment assistance for every new home buyer. It's just giveaway, gimmicky crap, communist, Marxist, like garbage we don't have the money for and is destroying our country through debt and inflation. Just horrible policy from Kamala during this debate. You know what was so psychotic about this whole thing? This thing was so psychotic the way Kamala Harris spent the entire debate beating down Trump, trying to beat down Trump. Kamala Harris spent the entire debate beating down Trump. And then she says, hey, what we really need to do is bring people up. We don't want to beat people down. It's like, whoa, the cognitive dissonance or the outright evil deception. It's like she spent the entire debate beating people down. And then she says, we bring people up. We don't beat people down. Trump beats people down. That was very, very telling in terms of how dishonest and evil she is. The Trump I'm talking moment was hilarious when Trump was like, I'm talking. Excuse me, I'm talking. Does that sound familiar, Kamala? That was hilarious. Another thing that was absolutely hilarious was when Donald Trump said that Kamala Harris supported taxpayer-funded transgender operations on illegal aliens. Oh, that was hilarious. We started bursting out laughing when Trump talked about the transgender operations on illegal aliens. That was a really, really good line. And it's true, too. I mean, Kamala Harris really did support the taxpayer funding, transgender operations on illegal aliens held in our, detention centers for being criminals. The one point where Trump took over the debate, he said to David, he cut David off and shut David up, and then that David Muir guy, and then ranted, and then he told him, you might ask her that question. That was fantastic. Trump basically took over and ran the debate. I couldn't believe that Kamala Harris repeated the fine people hoax. It's staggering to be here in 2024 when we know for a fact that Donald Trump never said that the white supremacists and the Nazis were fine people. We know for a fact. Anybody can go back and watch the video of the Trump press conference where what Trump was talking about was the people on both sides of the debate about whether we're to tear down historical monuments. And there are very fine people on both sides of the debate about whether or not we should tear down. Although I question whether there's any very fine people that want to tear down our historical monuments. I think most of the very fine people are on the side of being opposed to tearing. But the fact that Kamala Harris is still pushing that lie and that hoax, the Kamala Harris campaign is a hoax. This is a hoax campaign. The entire Kamala Harris campaign is based on a hoax. They're pushing this fine people thing, which is a pure hoax. So there's no other. I mean, when she's up there accusing Trump and basing her campaign on this idea about Trump saying very fine people on both sides of the white supremacist Nazi debate, it's like, no. And the fact that you're relying on that means your entire campaign is a hoax yourself. And then it was hilarious when Kamala bringing up the Proud Boys. You know, me and my wife were just like, the Proud Boys. Like, oh my word. Who cares about the Proud Boys, Kamala? Talking about January 6th. ABC acting as if January 6th is some really important issue. And that the peaceful transfer of power is at issue. And it's like, dude, Donald Trump peacefully transferred power. And you guys are the sick. Donald Trump destroyed them on January 6th. ABC wanted to obsess over January 6th in the 2020 election and who won. I think Trump did a great job of saying, no, what's important is we got to win this election. I thought that Trump did a good job on that. Kamala just said stuff and did stuff that was just not believable. If you know anything, I mean, if you're a low information, dumb person, or if you're just ignorant, like maybe you would have believed some of this crap. But like Kamala was trying to say that the military thinks that Trump is an absolute disgrace and that nobody in the military supports Trump and they think Trump is a disgrace because of what Trump said about the military. Give me a flipping break. Nobody believes that. Everybody knows that the military supports Trump over Democrats. Kamala was very not genuine, not at all. Kamala did do a pretty good job. Kamala Harris did do a pretty good job on really deceptively explaining things like the Afghan withdrawal. I thought she was pretty good about deceptively like lying about what happened on that. She also did a pretty good job on some other, some of the personal attacks and the emotional appeals, which like they are not convincing for me because I don't vote based on personal attacks or emotional appeals. But for, I think, a lot of voters, I think Kamala did actually a pretty good job on some of that BS personal attacks, garbage personal attacks, inappropriate lying personal attacks, and then a lot of her just lies. ABC bringing up Trump saying that Kamala happened to turn black was hilarious, and Trump did a great job of basically saying, look, that's up to her. I just saw that she had put out that she wasn't black, and then I saw that she put out that she was black, so I'm fine with whatever she does. That was a great answer by Trump. I thought it was very, very disturbing the way Kamala Harris accused Trump of dividing on race when that's exactly what the Biden-Harris campaign has been all about. That's all they've done is divide on race ever since Obama and Kamala and the rest of them. Donald Trump doesn't divide people based on race. He divides people based on whether they're American citizens or not, which is literally the very definition of patriotism. Very weird the way Kamala kept saying, I have a plan. I have a plan. I think Trump had terrible answer on healthcare. Oh, you know what was so upsetting too about Trump's answer on healthcare is that I've just number one, the answer on healthcare is pretty easy and obvious. It's like we obviously need to completely repeal all federal laws related to healthcare and health insurance and completely burn the system to the ground and start from scratch because it's a failed system. Donald Trump was like, no, we'll just keep Obamacare and we're trying to come up with a plan and blah, blah. That was a terrible answer. And what sucks was I just recently watched like pretty in-depth policy discussion on healthcare reform, and you know there's so much to talk about there and so many good ideas to start going down the right path, and I just didn't think Trump did a great job on healthcare. I thought that was hilarious when Kamala Harris was like, I'm a gun owner. I'm not gonna take away your guns. I'm a gun owner. Oh really, Kamala? You're a gun owner? You know, this San Francisco liberal, you can barely even own a gun in San Francisco. Give me, that was another one of those moments that was totally rehearsed, totally fake, totally not genuine. When ABC News, what would you do to fight climate change? The whole premise of the question was that, oh, climate change is real. It's this big, horrible thing. We must do something. We must do something. It's all man-made, humans, man-made, you know, environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we got to do something. We got to do something. We got to do something. It's like, what a biased BS question. Anyway, that's pretty much my take on it. Overall, I don't think this is going to change much. I would not say this was Trump's strongest performance, but I still think Trump did a good job. I thought Kamala Harris was terrible. And so I say Trump won just because Trump was like, you know, average, maybe a little below average. And Kamala Harris was like, you know, complete F failure. So that's where I'm at. Where are you guys at?